that you guys are going to hear the same exact intro. But again, my name's Alejandra and I am the Education Community Coordinator. If you are joining this session and weren't available for the earlier sessions, I just want to share a little bit about Empower Idaho. We provide trainings and educational opportunities as well as advocacy for adults with behavioral health conditions in Idaho. As you can see, we have Jennifer and LaDessa here with us today, who are co-presenting our final session. Quick overview of the control panel. Everybody is muted and the webcam feature is turned off. So you'll be communicating through the questions drop-down box. Again, that's for both comments and questions, and we'll be reviewing them throughout the session. We also have the PDF slides available in the handouts drop-down box for you to download. And I ask that you refer to your email for the CEU eligibility requirements. I sent a couple out, and the most recent one noting that people are having issues accessing the evaluation. So essentially just hang tight for the CEU certificates to be issued, because we have a couple of things to figure out before we can issue those. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you gals. Thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you, Alejandra. My name is LaDessa Foster. I'm the Clinical Services Manager here at BPA Health. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor and have been working in the area of mental health and substance use for a number of years. And I'm super excited to be here today presenting with Jennifer. And Jennifer, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Cornie, and I'm actually new to BPA. I am the new Recovery Coach Supervisor for the new Recovery Coach Academy and Training Academy. And we're going to be providing Recovery Coach training and supervision training. So I've worked in many counseling offices, nonprofits, crisis centers in my past, but my passion is recovery coaching. And I have seen how it's worked, and I'm an advocate for recovery coaching and peer support.
Great, thank you. We're super excited to be a part of this. The second year now we've been a part of this conference, and super excited to be here and talking today about communication skills at work. And we're going to communication skills in general, but we're also going to be honing in a little bit more on some of those difficult conversations that you may have to have with your boss. I believe all of us probably have a boss at some point. Even if we're the owner of an agency, we probably have to report to payers. So sometimes those conversations can get difficult, and we're going to talk through a few of those. Alejandra went through some of the basic housekeeping. I did want to just add, the training is going to be approximately 60 minutes. If you have questions, please go ahead and use the question function and type those in. And we'll also save some time at the end of today's training. If for some reason we do not get through all of the questions, please still go ahead and type those, and Alejandra can reach out to us and we'll try and get those answered and get back with you here within the next week. So I want to go over some of the objectives that we're gonna go through today. We're going to be, hopefully by the end of today, you're going to be able to report that you do have some increased active listening skills, maybe some new tips on how to effectively engage with active listening skills. We're going to talk about assertive communication, how you might address some of those difficult conversations assertively. And then we're also going to talk through how to address difficult and ethical situations that may come up. So I like to start with just some basic communication facts. And as we were preparing for this presentation, we read some research that Beckwith did. And in Beckwith's research, they shared that there are 40 to 80 micro messages in any 10-minute conversation, or approximately 2,000 to 4,000 verbal and nonverbal micro messages are sent throughout the day. I mean, when we think of micro messages, we're talking about those small unconscious gestures, facial expressions, words that are used, tones of voice, and then also some of those unintentional messages that we may send as well as receive every day. So communication is part of our day-to-day life, and it's incredibly important. The Economist Intelligence Unit, they did some research back in 2018, and in that process in 2018, they found that 44% of employees stated that they had missed deadlines due to poor communication with supervisors. So when we think about that, that's 44% is awfully close to 50%. So again, I think that really highlights how important communication is in getting our work done in a timely manner. That same research, I didn't add this to the slide, but that same research cited the billions of dollars that are lost every year due to poor communication. And they interviewed companies that had over 1,000 employees. And I know in Idaho, we don't have that many companies that have 1,000 employees, especially when we're talking about behavioral health. So I didn't include that slide here, but billions of dollars lost due to poor communication. So it just really highlights the importance from a business standpoint. And when there's poor communication, we've probably all been on the receiving end of either we misunderstood what someone was saying or they misunderstood what we were saying. And we know that when that happens, it can cause anger, frustration, hurt feelings. So that clarity in communication is just so incredibly important, whether it be with our supervisors, our colleagues, our family, or communication with the clients and peers that we serve. That same Economist Intelligence Unit study also addressed the fact that some of the top causes of poor communication are different styles of communication and unclear responsibilities. And when I think of that, I have to laugh. When texting first came out, and even to this day, I'm not much of a texter. I can do it, and with some people, it's the primary way I communicate with them, especially my kids who have said, Mom, you know, you don't need to call and leave a voicemail. I can see that you called. I can see if I missed your call. Just text me, and, you know, maybe I'm busy. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And so I'm at the place now where, unless it's urgent, I text my kids and say, call me when you get a minute. And so I've learned over time to text my kids. The same research study also talked about generations and how, I don't want to stereotype anyone, but older generations are less likely to text and more likely to email when it comes to work and professional situations. And it talked about the importance of all generations when you're talking about a work setting to be very adaptable. So it talked about older generations need to, if the organization embraces texting, they need to embrace texting. And if the organization is email based, then individuals need to embrace emailing. So it was interesting to hear just how communication styles, if not addressed, could really further cause problems down the road with communication. So sometimes it's having those conversations and learning what's the preferable way in this organization that we communicate with colleagues and with supervisors. So I would encourage you, as you think about where you work, think about, have you had that conversation with your boss? The other thing that the same study talked about was being clear about responsibilities. And when I think of some of the emails that I receive at work on a daily basis, I'm oftentimes one of several people that the email goes out to. And you guys have possibly seen this at work. Maybe an email goes out to several people on your team, and there are oftentimes I'm like, should I respond, or is someone else going to respond? Whose responsibility is it to respond? I don't know. And then at the end of the day, realize nobody responded. And so I think sometimes having those unclear responsibilities can also cause communication breakdown. So important things to think about, important facts to think about, important things to talk with your supervisors about. When we talk about communication skills, I think it's important to think about just some of the different ways we communicate. Probably everyone is aware talking is communicating, right? So verbal communication is talking, speaking, as well as actively listening. And those kind of pulled together create that verbal communication style. Then there's written, and written is going to be not only pen and paper written, but it's going to be texting, emails, writing reports, documentation at work in your client peer files. So anything you're writing needs to be very clear, as well as reading, right? When you're reading something, you're reading information that others have communicated to you. And then there's that nonverbal and visual types of communication. We're going to break each of these down a little bit more detail as we go through this training. When we talk about active listening, it really is that being attentive. So, you know, if I'm leaning back or looking away, if I'm, you know, on my phone, doing my thing, texting while I'm in the middle of a conversation with someone, I'm not actively listening. So it really is about paying attention, maybe leaning in, asking some open-ended questions rather than yes, no. Asking more probing questions if you're trying to get clarity on what message the other person is trying to relay to you. You may want to paraphrase back what you just heard, what they said. It's important that you don't, you know, just word for word say, you told me you're angry. Are you angry? That's not paraphrasing. Paraphrasing might be, you sound really upset with what happened last night. I can tell you're frustrated. That would be more paraphrasing. And it's okay to go ahead and use the word anger, but you don't want to just rotely say what they just said to you. But paraphrase back. Make sure you understand the true message that's trying to be relayed. It's important to be attuned to and reflect feelings. So be listening not only for words, but pay attention to the feeling that the person is portraying. Summarize. Don't hesitate to summarize. Then there's speaking. And when we think about speaking, it's not just the words you say, but how you say it. You know, if you come in and you talk like this, you probably get the impression that someone's angry. Or if you come in and you talk like this, you probably might not think they're very sincere. So go in and talk with a normal tone of voice. Be attentive to your volume. If you are speaking loudly, that could be offensive to people. They may feel like you're shouting at them. If you speak too quietly, that can leave someone with a different impression. They may get frustrated because they have a hard time hearing you. They may feel like you're not confident, which is why you're speaking more quietly. When we think about confidence, to portray a confident message, it's important not to fill your conversation with a bunch of fillers. And some of the fillers that I know that we all have them, most likely all of us use them at some time or another. I'm more prone to fall into an as my filler, and it just kind of becomes part of our language. And so it's important to pay attention to that and try to keep fillers out of your conversation so you can appear more confident in what you're presenting. Another filler that we hear a lot is the word like. And that at one point I sat down with a family member who uses like a lot, and it was kind of humorous because I was paying attention to it. And I counted the number of times the word like was used in a 1 minute period of time. And it was hilarious. She used like 5 times in 1 minute. Wow, that's a lot. and to be able to reflect that back, we had fun with it. But pay attention to your own fillers. Again, we all have them. But if you're trying to speak confidently, try and avoid using fillers. maybe practice at home with family and friends and see if you can figure out how to minimize the number of fillers you use. Another thing to be attentive to when you're having a conversation, especially with anybody, but when you're talking with your supervisor or your boss, it's really important to be very clear and concise with what the message is you're trying to convey. Don't beat around the bush. If you beat around the bush, there's going to be misunderstanding. So be very clear and concise. And then I encourage you to use I statements. An example of an I statement as opposed to a you statement might be, I noticed that when I got my paycheck yesterday, my mileage reimbursement was not included. I wonder if maybe I submitted the form incorrectly or if it was accidentally missed. That's going to be received a lot more positively than if you were to go in and have a conversation with your boss that started with, "You didn't pay me for my mileage." Very different approach. The first approach using I statements is going to go over much better than starting the conversation with a you statement. Assertive communication is another skill that's really important to think about in all areas of your life and definitely at work. When you are assertively communicating, you're going to help meet the needs of everyone. And that's by expressing your feelings, your thoughts, your beliefs, while at the same time respecting the rights and feelings of others. So this is actively addressing what you want, what you need, what you believe, not discounting what others' rights or feelings are. So really important to keep that in mind. That respect is critical when you're talking about assertive communication. Otherwise, you're just going to be a bully. So think about respect, how you're coming across, and are you respecting the rights and feelings of others. When we talk about assertive communication, I ran across an article by Purdue, and they kind of tried to break it down into just 3 C's to kind of help you keep in mind what is assertive communication. And they break those 3 C's down into having confidence in yourself and the message you're portraying, making sure that message is clear and concise and it's easy to understand, and that your approach when you are bringing up the issue is very calm and controlled. And if you're able to do those 3 C's, your communication style is much more likely to be assertive. And again, you're much more likely to get your needs met while respecting the rights of others and feelings of others, and maybe help get their needs met as well. The next we're going to talk about written communication, and I'm going to actually turn it over to Jennifer if you want to take it from here.
Okay. So written communication, do you realize that 90% of our communication is done in text messages, emails, letters, professional messages, and it can be taken as negative or positive on how we write something. So for instance, writing in all capitals. I never forget, my dad was 75 years old and got his first computer, and I was teaching him how to do email, and he was typing everything in capitals. And I said, "Dad, that means you're yelling or you're angry in an email." And he goes, "But I'm not." And I said, "But they don't know that." So we always have to be really careful on how we send emails and text messages, because usually people make assumptions on what you're meaning because it's not clarified. So always remember to do spell check, grammar, and then also never send an email when you're angry. Always think before you send. So for example, I'll never forget, LaDessa, this is so funny. I got an email from a staff member, and old staff member, and I'm not going to name any names because they are online right now watching us. But talk about, it's really funny because anyway, I got a text message, or it was an email that said, BTW IDK OMW. And I was like, what does that mean? And So anyway, I actually had to Google it and look it up. And the joke in the office was that, you know, I was old and had to look up, you know, ask a 14-year-old on or somebody younger on what it meant. But like I say, you know, just clarify what a person means. And sometimes sending a IDK in a professional email is like, it's kind of hard to decipher. So. And just remember another thing, when we're sending text messages about clients to our boss, just remember that if our kids are using our cell phone or a spouse or a friend, that stuff can be looked up. So make sure that you are HIPAA compliant on keeping your everything secure. So. And the next slide, we're going on nonverbal and visual communication. So how many of you guys ever been misread on how by folding your arms, you know, rolling your eyes, people, how many times have you guys have been into a meeting and somebody rolls their eyes and you take that wrong, like they don't care? We need to be really careful on our body language. And for instance, you know, when you're shaking your finger in a meeting, that shows that, hey, I could be angry. Also checking your phone during a meeting could be, oh, my information, or I'm more important than what the meeting's all about. So interrupting somebody in mid-sentence, you know, shows that, you know, I don't care what they're saying. I'm thinking about what I'm saying is more important than what you're saying. So just remember that good eye contact, leaning in, and good body language is so important, especially when we're working with our peers. It shows that we're engaged in the conversation. It shows that we care. And also we need to think about our decor in our office. You know, when we have a sign that says, keep out, your mom doesn't work here, clean up after yourself, or $5 fine for whining, something like that in your office can show a peer or a client that, you know, a peer that we have an attitude that we don't care, you're kind of wasting our time. So just make sure that, you know, be careful on what you put up in your office. Also, there was one thing that came up that I was driving through a parking lot one day, and there was employee parking, and and this was somewhere in Boise, but there was a bumper sticker on somebody's car that said, close the borders. I thought to myself, what if a client or a peer was coming into the agency brand new, and they seen that bumper sticker and they thought, well, what if that's my new recovery coach or my new peer support person? Maybe that's their car. What kind of message is that sending? So we need to be really careful on what we post on our vehicles and our offices, and we just need to be careful about the communication and signals that we give. So the next slide. So we're going to demonstrate kind of a little skit here on maybe good communication and bad communication, okay? So we're going to role play me and LaDessa. So LaDessa, I'll tell you what, you be the client and I will be the bad recovery coach.
Sounds good. So for the purpose of this demonstration, let me set the stage. My name is Johnny. I am currently sitting in your parking lot, and for the last few months, I've been getting worse and worse and worse. My symptoms are getting worse. I've been using substances at a higher and higher rate, and my spouse has said, if you don't get help, you're moving out. And I'm really nervous because I know once I walk in that door, life is going to get really hard, and I don't know what's going to happen. So I've been sitting in the car for a half hour, and I am walking in the door now to meet my recovery coach for the first time. And I hear her name is Jennifer. So that's kind of the background. So hi, Jennifer. My name is Johnny.
Hi, Johnny. Are you coming in for appointment?
Yeah, I have an appointment to see you at 3. You're my recovery coach, right?
Well, I was gonna go out for a smoke break, but okay. Just have a seat. I'll be with you in just a second.
Oh, okay. Then we're going to pretend my phone rings. And I'm answering the phone while Jennifer is out having a cigarette. Hi, Sally. Yes, I told you I was going to come to my appointment and I'm here, but my recovery coach that I'm supposed to meet with, she just blew me off and walked out to get a cigarette. I knew that going and trying to get help was pointless. I've tried. You can't kick me out when I've tried. They don't want to help me. There isn't anyone that can help me. I think I'm just going to leave. I know we can work this out. I'll quit on my own. I don't really think I need to do this treatment thing. I'll just quit. Is that okay? I'm coming home now.
So it's so important that when people come in to our offices that they are respected and that they know that we are engaged in communication with them, that we show that we care, because you never know what point in life that they are at.
I do think that's so important, Jennifer. You know, I think about back when I've done direct care, and I think about clients. Sometimes they maybe did come in early. Maybe they came in 5 or 10 minutes early. And, you know, maybe I couldn't see them 5 or 10 minutes early. But maybe there could have been a different way the recovery coach could have approached that, right? Maybe they could have said, oh, I love that you're here early. Please have a seat. Can I get you a glass of water? I'll be with you in 10 minutes. They don't even have to bring up that they're going to go out and take a smoke break because they've been working for 6 hours straight and they need a breather. They don't have to bring that up. But had Jennifer offered me a glass of water and just said she'd be with me in just a few minutes, that would have been a very different experience for the client as, oh, well, I'm going to go take a break and I'll be right back. And very different experience, but Jennifer still got her break and still could have seen Johnny at 3 o'clock when his appointment was. So I do think it's important just to be mindful of how what you're saying and doing can come across to the clients you're working with.
Exactly.
We're gonna flip things around, and now Jennifer is going to be a client named Mary, and I'm going to be the recovery coach. So Jennifer, do you want to kind of set the stage?
Okay, so I am Mary. I've relapsed 10 times. I've been in and out of the crisis center. I have burned my bridges. I've been given resources, but I end up relapsing. So we'll over and over again. So here we go. So.
Hi, Mary. My name is LaDessa. I'm so happy that you came in today, and I'm really excited to meet with you. How can I help you today?
I don't know if you even want to help me, because I've relapsed again, and I've been in treatment 4 or 5 times, and I know I'm wasting everybody's time. I don't think I'm going to live any longer if I don't get help, but I know that you've helped me before, and I'm at my last point in life that I don't know what to do.
Mary, I am so glad that you came in to see me today, and you are not wasting my time at all. I'm so glad that you're taking the step and you're coming in to get back into recovery. That is so important, and I'm glad that you have followed through. Why don't we sit down and see what you're hoping to get out of today? Were you wanting to get back into treatment?
Oh my gosh, yes. Thank you.
You know, I noticed when we walked past the front desk that John was sitting at the front desk, and I believe he was your counselor when you were here last time. Why don't I give him a buzz and see if he can come in and join us, and see if he has time to meet with you today or can get you on the schedule for tomorrow. Would that be okay with you?
Yes.
Awesome. Let me go see if he's free.
So it's a good example of being positive, leaning in, and good eye communication. It's really hard to see on a screen on Zoom, or on WebEx or whatever it is. But what if LaDessa picked up her phone and took a phone call during this time? Or what if she was typing on her computer and was more worried about getting her notes done than what Mary was really talking about? What kind of communication does that give Mary?
Yeah, I think in this situation, really thinking about Mary already is feeling bad about relapsing, like she's worried that she's wasting people's time. And yeah, had I picked up my phone or started jotting down notes or typing on my computer, it would have reinforced that message that Mary came in with of, I don't know if you want to help me. I'm just wasting your time. So yeah, I think it's just really important to be attentive and not be multitasking when you're working with clients. It's also so critical. Now we're going to take it a step further. So we've been talking about how to have these conversations with your peers and with your clients. And this next scenario, we want to talk about how these same skills can be used when talking with a supervisor or a boss. So I'm going to be a recovery coach, and I'm going to come in and have a conversation with Jennifer, who is my supervisor.
Hi, LaDessa. How are you doing today? What can I help you with?
Gosh, I'm so embarrassed. Thank you for meeting with me. I'm so embarrassed. I don't even quite know how to say this, but I'm like 3 weeks behind in my documentation, and I just have not been able to keep up. You know, my workload has just increased, and I've got 6 new clients, and I am having a really hard time getting my notes done. And I know that that's going to be a problem because I know you're not going to be able to bill, and I'm super embarrassed, but I'm like freaking out about it. I can't sleep at night. And I just wonder if there's anything we can do. I don't want you to fire me, but I feel like I need to tell you what's going on.
LaDessa, I am so glad you came to me, and you know yourself better than anybody. And whether if you need a mental health day, a shift in assignments, support on a project, what do you think the solutions are? It's okay to ask for help. And I am so proud with your honesty, and I do not think anything less of you, because it's not fair to yourself. It's not fair for yourself if you're not sorry, because if you're not fair to yourself, you're not going to be fair to your peers. So let's make a plan, and maybe a mental health day would help. What would you think that would help you, LaDessa?
You mean I could take a day off even though I'm behind?
Yes, it's you got to take care of yourself.
That would be so good. I feel like I need to sleep, and I got to get some things done at home, and maybe if I had an extra day off, I could refocus when I came back in on Monday. Could I maybe have tomorrow off, and maybe Monday have that be a day I get caught up?
LaDessa, let's sit together, let's make a plan, and let's work together, because I'm so glad that you are able to communicate with me, and that you that we can fix this.
Thank you so much for listening to me and not firing me. And maybe when I get caught up on Monday, then we could sit down and talk about my caseload after I'm caught up. And maybe it wouldn't feel so unmanageable if I wasn't so far behind. So thank you.
You're welcome. So what if LaDessa came to me and she told me that she had 6 new clients and she couldn't handle them. And I rolled my eyes. I was like, oh my gosh, you know, and she wanted a day off. What kind of communication is that sending her?
No, I probably at that point would have figured I was getting fired, or you didn't care about me, and I would have just continued to feel worse and worse. And probably the worse I feel about myself going to work every day, chances of me being a good employee are going to diminish. I probably am going to fall farther and farther behind. I may not be at my best. I may not be providing quality services to the peers and clients. And pretty good chance I might quit.
Exactly.
I think all of that is a reality. And I think when we do this demonstration about communicating with our supervisors, I don't want to minimize the fact that we've probably all had great supervisors in our history, and we've probably all had a supervisor at some point in our work history that wasn't so great. So Jennifer did a great job of what I would hope a good supervisor would be able, how they would be able to listen. And maybe I wasn't a great peer, and maybe in the end I won't end up continuing to work there if I'm weeks and weeks and weeks behind. But Jennifer did a great job of listening. If this is the first time this has come up, she was in problem solving mode, and that's awesome. Had Jennifer been awful, we talked earlier about assertive communication. This was a good step in being assertive, and this might be something the peer would want to circle back around and have another assertive communication, maybe the following week around caseload. And if the caseload's not reasonable, bring that up in an assertive manner. So I don't want to say every boss is going to be awesome, but if we don't bring up issues when they come up, oftentimes bosses aren't going to know it's a problem until it's too big of a problem to solve. So.
And that is one thing we always imagine on the worst, but your boss could be very understanding. And when you have this on your shoulders of, oh my gosh, I can't get this done, I can't get that done, but communication, because the turnover rate is very high in the mental health and SUDS field, it's very high. And so that's why it's so important to be able to go to your supervisor.
All right.
So, well, our next thing is having a second set of the importance of going to your boss. We're going to talk about mandatory reporting, clarifying messages, emails, emergencies, ethical situations. And so the reason you have a supervisor in peer support and recovery coaching is to have a second set of eyes and ears and opinions in a situation. And to double check with your boss. We are mandatory reporters. We are required to report if somebody's hurting themselves or others, or if, so just remember that there's policies and procedures in place that you should have in your office, and go to your boss and ask them, okay, what if I can't get a hold of you in a case of a crisis? What, and clarify with him what to do. Also clarify with him where your procedures books are in your office and what to do in case of a crisis situation. Communication is so important. And then on top of that, LaDessa, did you know about our new 988 suicide crisis hotline that we have?
It is so awesome. It is so awesome.
We're so excited about it. So I'll tell you all a little about it. July 16th, the crisis lifeline rolled out. Anyone in the United States who has a suicide or is experiencing a mental health crisis can call or text. And there's a 3-digit number, just remember 988. And the hotline offers free confidential emotional support, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they're they are actually trained counselors who are part of the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline Network. You'll never get a busy signal, and they won't put you on hold. So it's an awesome service that's finally rolled out, and so just remember that. I'm excited about having that option now.
It's a fantastic resource.
Yeah. So anyway, so just remember, ethical situations, communicate with your boss and your supervisor that what to do in case of emergency. Clarify confusing emails. I'll go back a little bit. I got a text message that said, I'm done. I'm done. What does that mean? So clarifying what that text message means. Is that person done with life? Are they done with their job? Are they done with their kids? Make sure you clarify emergency situations like that. So, LaDessa, have you ever gotten an email like that or a text message? And then you have to think about it, thinking, well, what do they really mean about this?
Yeah, is this a crisis emergency, or should I panic about this? Do I need to return the phone call immediately, or is it just an offhand comment? Yeah, definitely have received those. And depending on how I interpret that, would definitely lead to a different response. So if it's, you know, I'm done, meaning I am so exasperated, my neighbor is mowing their yard at 6:30 in the morning again, that would be a very different response than I am done with life.
Exactly.
And I've got a plan and I'm going to go complete suicide. Those are two very different interpretations of the I am done that would lead to very different responses. So definitely get clarity on those confusing messages.
Have you ever heard the saying, when in doubt, check it out? So if you have a doubting text message or email, check it out. Clarify. Yes. So anyway, the next slide we'll go on to addressing difficult and ethical situations. Let's talk about honesty. Got to be honest with your supervisors. The truth usually comes out, and communication is so helpful. You know, be honest about your workload. You know, if there's a peer that's been assigned to you and you're like, know them from your past experiences in life, you know what, be honest. It's better to be honest in the front than have to fix things on the back end. And then think about justice. Whether bringing up injustice you are experiencing or those that are witnessing, it's important to speak up in advance. Respect. It's important to be respectful in our communications and what we're feeling. If we feel like we are being disrespectful, disrespected, clarify it. You know, a lot of times in text messages, you know, they may be sarcastic, but they're not meaning to be sarcastic. So, and then community. We live in such a small knit community in Idaho. You never know what that maybe a new peer or client could be a football coach of your sons, or it could be your boss's, your spouse's boss's cousin. And so it's critically important to address these situations to your supervisor immediately. And integrity, doing the right thing. You may find out yourself a situation where a colleague may be something's going on that let's go back here. Let's see here. Let me look at my notes here. You may find yourself in a situation that maybe even your supervisor doesn't know what to do. Talk to him and, you know, do the right thing. If you don't agree, then maybe that something's unethical, then you need to address that and let them know. LaDessa, how do you, the slide just went blank. Are you there?
I am. I've got a little glitchy on my internet connection for a second.
Okay.
So yeah, I do think it's important to have those conversations if maybe you're viewing something as unethical, whether it be maybe it's something one of your colleagues is doing, or if you're not sure if it's an ethical issue, it's important to talk about that. And if you're concerned that your boss is unethical, I think that's something you have to pay attention to as well. And I do know that peer support specialists have a different code of ethics from recovery coaches, and recovery coaches have a different code of ethics from counselors. And I think sometimes we get confused by what other colleagues who have a different profession, we can easily get confused by what their ethics are. And if we don't have those conversations, we could jump to conclusions that are incorrect. And I think a great example of this would be when peer services first started in Idaho. I had been at BPA for a few months when recovery coaching first came to Idaho. And, I was a counselor, and there's a lot of things as a counselor that I would be against my code of ethics, things that I can't do. And those are the very same things that make a recovery coach an awesome team member because they can do it. As a counselor, I would not probably go to an AA meeting with my client. I wouldn't put them in my car and go somewhere with them. Those are just not things that would be within my scope of work. It would be unethical for me to do those things. Where a recovery coach, that can be part of their job, depending on how their job description is written. It's not at all uncommon for a recovery coach to go to an AA meeting or an NA meeting with a client who maybe has never been to a meeting before, and they're a little nervous about getting going. That would not be unethical at all. That would be part of the work that they do. So those roles are very, very different. And we noticed when recovery coaching first rolled out in Idaho that there were a lot of counselors who were just very concerned, not understanding the difference in the roles. And there was this initial thought that recovery coaches are unethical. And no, they aren't unethical. They're doing the things that are in their job description. So we had to sit down and have a conversation with clinicians around how those roles differ. And I'm wondering, I didn't start as a recovery coach, but I'm wondering, and maybe Jennifer, you can answer this. I wonder when you first started as a recovery coach, if you maybe had a perception that counselors were unethical because they didn't provide those same supportive services that you provided as a recovery coach. I'm wondering if you had that experience.
It was kind of interesting because I actually became a recovery coach and then also a SUDA. So I had to remember which hat I was wearing because I was working for one agency doing my recovery coaching while I was doing working on my practicum for my SUDA. So I had to remember which hat I was wearing. So it was very confusing. So you had to just remember. So anyway.
And I think having those conversations with supervisors, when it comes to these difficult conversations and it comes to ethics, those are probably some of the hardest conversations to have with supervisors and to bring up for a lot of people. These things that you just mentioned, honesty, justice, respect, integrity, those are some of the most difficult and also some of the most important if you're going to continue to work for an agency. If you feel like any of these things are going on and you don't address it, again, it's not going to be a healthy work environment. So
exactly. And if they don't listen, you need to make sure that maybe that's not the right agency for you too. So yeah, you have to sleep at night. So let's go about finding your Vegas. what happens in the office stays in the office. And I just realized I have a sleep mode on my computer, so that's why my screen went black. I just have to move my mouse every once in a while. So how many times have you ever gone into a doctor's office and the receptionist has files out of other employees or of their clients, or they have their screen open and you can see their screen? We live in such a small community and everything, more than likely you're going to know that person that's on that screen. So remember to keep everything confidential. When you're talking on the phone and communicating with somebody over the phone and there's a waiting room right outside, don't use last names. Remember who's out there. I mean, would you want your information spelled to everybody in the waiting room? Just be careful on what you're letting out. Use privacy filters on your screens. Never leave your screens open and confidential information out there. Keep your files locked and your drawers secured, and keep your conversations about confidential matters. Go to a conference room, go to a closed office, but be careful of what you're saying in front of other people, because who knows? I'll never forget. I had a peer that applied for a job, and she took all her we were so excited about her putting her application in. And so she went in with a friend for moral support, and their friend sat in the waiting room, and she handed her application on to this person, a receptionist. And so she walked out the door, and her friend was still sitting in the waiting room. And that person, the receptionist, said, "Why would we hire so-and-so? She's a, blah, 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 blah." And that friend heard everything. So you never know who's going to be in that office. So be careful on how you communicate with others. I felt so bad for her because her bubble was just burst, and so just be careful. On top of that, texting about peers to your boss or your work, and then giving your phone to your kids and your spouse to use your phone, and all those text messages are on there. Be careful on what you put out there. I mean, that's a really bad HIPAA violation right there. And then on top of that, just remember, I always said sunshine and rainbows out in the waiting room. The last thing peers need to hear is drama, to hear drama in the office, to hear coworkers fighting, to hear just problems, other people's problems. They're not in there to hear that. So always remember, keep your conversations confidential, and go and vent to your boss in the office with a closed door, not in front of peers or other people, employees, to hear.
Great words of wisdom. So we've got just a couple minutes left. I'm wondering if we have any questions that have come in.
Hello. I don't see that any questions have come in, but we have a couple of people that are sharing comments about their experiences. One person said, "When I first became a peer support in 2015, I ran across many professionals that believed the peer support was trying to replace CBRS, and that there was some resentment about this field not having to undertake the amount of schooling CBRS requires. Discussions with agency leaders to discuss how CBRS and peer support or recovery coaches can work together in their own scope."
Oh, that is so important, and I'm hoping, I'm so hopeful, and I'm hearing out in the community that there has been a shift over the last couple years, and that more and more organizations are embracing peers and recovery coaches, and seeing the value in providing quality services. And I'm so hopeful that that is happening. I'm hearing that that's happening. And I'm hearing less and less fear from CBRS workers, counselors, and more embracing which is exciting to see that happen and exciting to see peers being welcomed as professionals. It's a great thing, but it's been a slow transition. It's been a slow few years, but I do hear more and more agencies have hired peers to join their teams, and that's awesome.
Awesome.
I totally agree, LaDessa.
Oh, sorry, Jennifer. We had a question come in here. How do you not become overwhelmed with communicating?
Oh, that's a great question, right? What we do all day long is at work is usually listen to people's struggles and challenges and provide support. And we're in a helping profession, and that communicating can get exhausting at the end of the day. So I think that making sure you're taking care of you, if you aren't doing that self-care, you will burn out. And, you know, at the end of the day, if for individuals that live alone, maybe it's a little bit different. It's different. Everyone needs to take care of themselves. But if you're going home to a house full of family, kids, spouse, everyone needs to figure out what is going to work best for them. But when my kids were at home, I had about a 30-minute commute every day. And I learned that my 30-minute commute, I could make a 45-minute commute if I needed more downtime very easily. I could take a different road. I would turn on music. I didn't listen to the news on the car on the way home. So that was one of the things that I did for myself, so I could clearly separate home and work. My happy place is going over Horseshoe Bend Hill. Whenever I can get out of town and go to the mountains, that's awesome. And just going over Horseshoe Bend Hill, my anxiety decreases. But obviously that's something I can't do every day. So thinking about those things I can do every day, whether it's a break, listening to music between when I log off at the end of the day and go home to family, or it's maybe reaching out to family or friends if I need to go and just have some social time. Depends on my day, but if self-care isn't a part of my regular routine, I will burn out.
And I think setting boundaries on communication with your peers is so important also, because, you know, from the first appointment, I used to tell them, okay, you know, this is my job, and, you know, this is my hours of work. And, you know, texting at 1 o'clock in the morning is not acceptable. So, and so, you know, setting those boundaries on communication, you know, for a peer to call you 20 times a day, it's not a healthy relationship right there.
Great point.
All right, we had a couple more comments come through, thanking you both for the presentation and also folks sharing their experience in the peer support space. So I welcome you all to review those in the questions box, and as well as you, Jennifer and LaDessa. Lots of appreciation. And I also want to quickly point out Pamela's comment. I am going to implement this in my own life. She mentioned, I use taking the garbage out as this is releasing the day and letting go of what happened that day. So I'm going to do that. Thank you for suggesting. I know, right? Thanks for the suggestion, and thank you all for joining. I know that there's a lot of you that were here since 9 a.m. So appreciate you sticking with us, and we'll be in contact about the CEUs again. I recognize that there were issues for some people, so please do read my emails that I've been sending out thoroughly, because there's a lot of answers to your questions there. And for those, again, that are having issues accessing the evaluation, we are looking into it. So we will chat more with y'all next week, and thanks again for joining.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you so much.
Bye.